I wandered around the house this morning and pulled a couple of wax collages that I've done in the past off the walls. Um, and these pieces are all framed to protect them from the elements. So bear with me while I try to get this into a shot that doesn't have a reflection on it. So this is A is for Alice, and it's probably my favorite wax collage. It's done on a piece of canvas board. And I wanted to show you my older pieces just to talk about materials a little bit. So this is an actual vintage photo that I've used to lay into the wax. And it's just one layer of the photo. It was damaged by water, and so it was pulling apart in layers. So I just pulled the top layer off and layered it into the wax. If you're going to use images, it's best to use either photos that have a matte finish on the front, so nothing from probably the 20th century, more like old stuff like this, or magazine images. You can't use, I'm pulling out some stuff here. You can't use laser printed images like the ones that I normally use when I'm doing collage, because laser prints are heat set, and when you set a tack iron on this or even brush on some wax, the toner lifts from the paper and it turns all blurry and gross. Inkjet images work okay. Generally they become a little transparent, so do a little test. And I'll talk about magazine images when I show you the second piece. The background on this is all gold, and it's a little hard to see because the wax sort of makes it lost and found, but it's basically this stuff. This is tissue paper that I got at the dollar store, and every time I go to the dollar store I check their tissue paper selection to see what kind of stuff they have, and they seem to always have something like this. This is somewhat transparent, and you can sort of see that when you put the wax on it, the paper that hasn't been inked turns completely transparent, and it just leaves the ink. So it almost looks like just layering gold on top. It's kind of cool. This is another type. This is not tissue paper. This is actually paper. This will not turn so transparent. It'll be a little opaque, but it's still kind of fun to use with wax. And this is also printed tissue paper, not metallic. This turns very transparent, and you just sort of get the pattern of the pink. It doesn't really look like roses. So tissue papers are kind of fun to work with, especially if they're printed. And you can see that I've pushed dimensional items into this after layering tissue paper and a photo. This is just some embroidered trim from the fabric store, a stencil that I've sort of waxed over separately and then laid it down and pressed with a tack iron to adhere it. And then coins, which are pretty heavy, and it's kind of risky to use it, but this has been hanging on my wall for, I don't know, 10 years, so it worked out okay. The thing to know about working with wax, and you'll see it when I do my demonstration, is that every time you press a an iron, or every time you wipe hot wax across the piece, you are softening the layers underneath. So it's entirely possible that you'll put down a photo and then go to lay your trim down, and the edge of the photo will actually float up out of the wax. So you have to work quickly, and you have to pay attention to what's underneath so that you don't lift it off and completely destroy your collage. Those are encouraging words. Woohoo! Here is my second favorite piece of wax collage I've ever done. This was done when the movie Memoirs of a Geisha came out, and this was part of the Netflix envelope that it came in. So what you can see going on here is this is a page from a Chinese book that I've torn out, and because it was printed on both sides, the wax has made the unprinted paper transparent, and so you can see the print on both sides. So that's something to be aware of. These two pieces were a little more dense. They're from a cover, and they were white on the back side. So there's no imaging bleeding through from the back side. They're just plain. This is washi paper, not to be confused with washi tape. It's pretty fibrous and pretty dense, so the pattern is showing up really well. And then her face, you can actually see the red Netflix envelope bleeding through from the other side. But also in places where her face was very pale, the print from the text page is bleeding through the image. So again, you have to be aware of how the wax is going to treat the papers that you're using. Is it going to make them transparent? Do you have to be careful about what you're layering on top of something? Because it might obliterate the image that you want to show. What's on the back side of your image? Those things are important. And then these dots are actually a little bit of melted crayon, and we're going to talk about that as well, I hope, assuming I can find some crayons. So even though there's a lot of like things bleeding through other things, I kind of like this because it gives her kind of a ghostly or ethereal look. I kind of wish that the warning that was printed on the end of the Netflix envelope wasn't right there on her face, but what can you do? That's what was there. So I think my next lesson is going to have to be actually doing some wax collage.